And yeah, we can get started. So please scan if you haven't yet for attendance. We are going to talk about filling out forms and other things you need to know as a producer. This presentation is going to be led by Cassie, and we're mostly going to be covering Emerson forms, obviously, because we're all at Emerson College, and that's kind of what is most relevant at the moment. We also will touch on industry forms as well, but obviously like none of us have been in the industry yet, so it's like a little bit hard, but we'll try and cover as much information as possible. Okay, I'm going to go to the next slide. So our woman of the week is Dee Rees. She's a screenwriter and director, and she actually became the first Black woman to be nominated for an Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay in 2018, which is like a very like that nomination, it does not go to women very often. So it was really neat to have her be someone who is nominated. Unfortunately, she didn't win, but at least she got nominated. That's good news. She worked on the widely acclaimed film Mudbound, which won a bunch of Oscar awards, and the director for that actually was the first, one of the first women to get nominated. And she's worked on both feature films and written episodes for certain TV series. You can see some of the stuff that she's worked on down below. She's done writing for Empire, which is pretty cool as well. So just someone to keep an eye on. She's pretty influential, pretty young, so still working on a lot of stuff and getting her name out there. So we're gonna start on industry forms. Basically, Emerson does a really great job of having us fill out forms that are pretty common in the industry. So location permits, safety forms, COVID safety forms now, doing talent release forms. The only thing that Emerson doesn't do very well is insurance, because that is something that you really have to think about in the industry of like all the equipment, the location, the actors, like anything could happen on a set. So making sure that the insurance is filled out correctly. Obviously we have that at Emerson, but it's more of just like yeah, if you filled out your form, you have insurance, no worries. It's very separate in the actual real world. Also, there's a lot more in terms of like budgeting. It doesn't always happen every time you do a film set where you have to fill out a certain like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 budget, but if you're going to make a film outside of college, or even through EIB or something like that, you really do have to think about budgeting, which then goes into making a spreadsheet, laying out all the costs you need under certain categories, and making it very, very clear. Also, you sometimes have to change that budget later on, update your accounting records, stuff like that. And also, this doesn't always fall on the producer. It tends to be something that maybe the producer will ask an AP to do, or have an assistant work on, and then they will be the ones to look it over. But it's something that is constantly changing, but it's very important to have your budget prepared when you're going to pitch your film or TV series or whatever you're planning on doing. There's also a lot more sort of contact sheets, contracts, and agreements with cast and crew that we tend to not have to do at Emerson, because we're usually hiring Emerson students. If you have hired someone through SAG or through Backstage or something like that who was not an Emerson person, you may have had to do some sort of contract or agreement, especially if they're part of a union like SAG. But it's just something that is very common throughout the industry, to make sure that everyone knows how long they will be working, how much they will be paid for when they're working, things like that. Also, talent release forms go hand in hand with that, making sure that everyone who's on your set is okay with being on your set and being filmed, because there's been times I've heard stories of people being like, sorry, you can't have me in your film anymore. And then it's like, wait, you were my main character, now we can't show this film, and it becomes a whole problem. So that's something to keep in mind. And also, I would honestly recommend doing that through Emerson as well. Emerson does have a talent release form. You can even just find a generic one online, but that's something that's very important. Even if it's like, say you had some of your crew members stand in as extras in the background, I would still have them fill it out as well, just to keep continuity and like everything is set and good, and you don't have to worry about any sort of drama that may happen. Also, a lot of location contracts and releases tend to happen more in the industry where you're actually like sitting down with either a location manager, a location scout, and talking about how long you're going to use the location, exactly what you're going to be doing there, if you're going to have any sort of stunts, any sort of props, any sort of big set design pieces. That's something that you also need to talk about. As I said, insurance forms are something that are a lot more common than we see here at Emerson. And then also production requirements is something a lot of times a producer will go over with a director, just saying like, this is sort of requirements of codes of conduct on set. So how everyone has to, address certain things, how they need to act on set, how they need to treat people on set, and then also requirements more in terms of like logistical sides, like what do we need to get this production done. If you want to scan this QR code, it's like from the website No Film School, which we're all in film school, but it's still a useful resource. And it's kind of like 99 forms that you would need. Some of them pertain to producing, other of them are just like shot lists or something like that. I would recommend going there and just checking it out. A lot of times you can find stuff from productions you've been on at Emerson or ask your professors, but this is kind of just a quick way to find something really easily.
So as far as Emerson forms to know, these are the location forms that you're going to have to fill out for every set that you're on, even class projects. So A1 is for all on-campus shoots, and normally the most common on-campus shoot is a dorm shoot, but we're not allowed to do those in COVID. A2 is off-campus public locations, and usually hand in hand with this goes like a Boston city permit, which I didn't put on here just because there's so many different ways to go about getting those. But if you are interested in that, there is a tab. If you scan the QR code, this takes you to Emerson's safety forms page. So it has links to all of the A forms. There's a link to take you to a page that has the link for the safety forms that you need. There's a talent release form on there. Different forms for Paramount stages, studios, et cetera, et cetera. And then they also have a, like how to acquire a Boston safety permit form. So that would be like if you are shooting in the gardens or a sidewalk that Emerson doesn't own, like anything that's not considered private property. And then A3s are off-campus private locations. So if you're shooting at somebody's apartment or an Airbnb, or let's say you rent out a church basement, because that's something that I'm doing for a set, those are all private locations. They are owned by somebody that is not Boston. So those are the most common, I think, for film sets, just because we are not allowed to film in dorms this semester. So everybody's been renting Airbnbs for like home type shoots. But yeah, if you want to scan that QR code, that takes you to the page that has every Emerson form you are ever going to need. So this is the safety form slide, which I want to go a little bit more into depth with. So the way Emerson used to do it, and I thought they still did, but apparently they changed it up on me this semester, you used to have to fill out this S1 form, which is the same thing as a production safety form. It is a checklist of like, do you have prop weapons on set? Are you filming near water? And if you would have to like check off, hopefully no to all of those, just because if you've read the production safety guidelines that Letty Manzo gives you your freshman year production course, you know that that's like not stuff you're supposed to do. But the way that they do it now is through eCommon, and if it's on the QR code back there. And again, if you need us to go back so you can scan anything like the 99 forms or the Emerson forms QR code, we can do that at the end of the meeting. But the production safety form is now through eCommon. So you would go through, tell like what semester, what course you're shooting for, all that stuff. And then you would fill out, again, the check boxes. And if you answer yes to any of the questions, it's not an automatic no for your set. You just have to, there's a space to write in more specifics about it. So if you're like, yes, I have a prop weapon, but it's a pair of scissors and nobody's using them like in combat, then Lenny would review your form. And then if he has more questions, he would reach out to you and be like, hey, can we talk about this? I also put Lenny's contact information, which I think we put up on a separate slideshow, so you might already have this, but just in case. Um, all of the safety forms you fill out, the COVID safety form as well, which I'll get into in a minute, and then all of the A1, A2, A3 forms, which are insurance forms, by the way, I forgot to mention that. You send those to Lenny, and just really, really like important side note, when you're sending the insurance form, so the A1, A2, A3, they have to be in a PDF form that is not through Google Drive, because what happens is you email them to Lenny with your COVID safety form and the production safety form, and he approves the safety stuff, but then he sends the insurance stuff to our Emerson's like insurance guy, Alan Bowers, who is very, very, very stingy with the way that he does things. So it has to be in a PDF form so that he can access it. And then usually a couple of days, he'll send you your certificates of insurance so that if you're shooting, let's say, an A2 form in like the Boston Commons and somebody comes up to you, like a cop or whatever, you can show them your certificate of insurance and see that like you have been approved to shoot there and like you understand like if anything's damaged or anything, like you're covered. Um, so that's just something really important to keep in mind. And then the COVID safety form, if you were here last semester and you've worked on a set, you know that it used to just be a Google Doc where you would put all of the information. Now it is a Google form that Lenny can like go through and review. Um, we have it on the next slide. So like you can like go through and see it. It's really simple. It's just like how many crew members are there, the names and Emerson IDs of all the crew members, what type or what Emerson equipment are you using, just everything to make sure that like your set is following the safety guidelines of Emerson and that you won't have more than 8 people in a room at a time, or no more than 3 actors, 5 crew, all that stuff. So it's just a very organized way for Lenny to be able to look at the summary of your set, approve it, or if there are problems, reach out to you and you can talk through it. So if you want to scan these, the safety form, this takes you to the page where you kind of have to scroll a little bit down, and then it says like VMA safety form. And then the COVID form, this is just the link to the Google form that Lenny has. Yeah, so usually it is the producers filling this out because it is a pre-production thing. You have to send in your safety forms and insurance forms at least a week before your set goes out, your first shooting date. But if you're going through EIV, and I'm not sure about Emerson Channel just because I've never worked on an Emerson Channel set, but EIV has you do it about 2 weeks before just so they can send it to their like academic advice, not academic advisor, faculty advisor, and there's like leeway for like getting signatures and everything. And again, we'll go through. So really quickly, just for people that have never seen these forms before, and they are a little bit intimidating, I will admit it. I was very like, I don't know what to do with this the first time I did it. We're going to just slowly walk through an A1 form. Emily, if you, yeah, cool. Emily, do you want to take this just because it's pulled up on your screen? So I feel like there might be a little bit like disconnect if I try.
Yes, absolutely. So basically it's pretty simple. This is like, I would obviously download this. Right now I just have it in my browser, but I would recommend downloading it and using either like Adobe PDF Reader or Preview to write everything in that you need to. Date of request is basically when you're filling this out, you have your student name ID. This can be anyone on your crew. So like I'm working on a BA right now and we had our AD fill out our permits. So that's okay. It doesn't have to be an EP. It doesn't have to be your director. It really can be anyone on the crew. Just make sure that they know they are then responsible if Lenny's going to email them or anything like that, or any sort of faculty at Emerson, that's going to be who the contact is. So if it's me filling it out, I would put my name, I would put my ID number, my email, my phone, your address. I live off campus, so I'd put my off campus address. If you live on campus, put your on campus address. Then either you have your course. So if this is for a shoot that you're doing maybe for class, you could put your course number. If you're doing it for an organization, say Women in Motion, you would put Women in Motion. You'd write who the faculty member or advisor is. For Women in Motion, it's Julia Halpern, so we would put that there. Then working title of the production, whatever that tends to be. So then you have to fill out this A1 form for every separate location. So say you're going to shoot for the A1, you're shooting in a dorm. Say you're shooting in the dorm and then you're going to shoot in the Lion's Den, you would have to fill out 2 separate forms for those. So if we're going to shoot in a dorm, we could write whatever the dorm is, and then date requested, time requested, when you will be shooting there. Then you do basically a description of the shoot. Pretty simple. Like it can be basically your log line, what action's going to happen there. And it's not your entire production. It's just what's going to happen basically in that location. So say if you're in this dorm room and 2 people are going to have a conversation and then they're going to get angry with each other and one person's going to walk out. You basically describe that just so you know what's going on. If there's something like these people are going to get in a fight, going to be in combat, you need to specify that because that is something that Lenny needs to know. Then you're going to basically write all of your crew members, and then all of your cast members, and make sure to specify if it's not Emerson. And then also writing all your equipment. So that's something that you need to know when filling out this A1 form is usually you have to wait until you have your equipment order in, or at least have a pretty solid idea of what your equipment is going to be before you fill this out. You also need to know your props and other set design and stuff like that that's going to be brought to set, but this is stuff that you're going to remove later. So like you wouldn't write, the bed, the desk, and the chairs that are already in the room, but say you need to bring a lamp and some books, you could write that here as well. So then you write your name, you do your student signature, you write the date, and then you would send this off to first the faculty advisor, I would recommend, because you need their name and signature before you send it to Lenny. Lenny is basically the last form of contact from this form. So if you were sending it to Women in Motion, you would send it to us. We would send it to our faculty advisor. She would sign it. We'd send it back to you. Then you'd have to send it to Emerson Police, Director of Housing if you're doing it in a dorm. And then basically after all of this gets filled out, you would then send it to Lenny at the end. A lot of the times police or maybe an advisor or something like that may just give email confirmation. They don't want to go through the hassle of signing it. Fine. Just make sure you attach that email and that confirmation, either a screenshot of it or forward it to Lenny so they make sure that they know that it's going to be approved. And then either props uses weapon, no or yes, you're going to be the one to check this box. And then if it is a yes, once again, make sure you list above what those weapons will be, prop weapons will be. So it's pretty simple. You just got to make sure you're writing everything correctly. You read it through multiple times. I would recommend, say if you're like an AD and you're filling this out, I'd then send it to your producer and just be like, hey, can you check this and make sure, say you're a producer and maybe you're co-producing, send it to your co-producer just so they can check it. If you're the only producer, maybe send it to your director. Just make sure it's had multiple eyes on it. It also does take a little bit of time sometimes to get these signatures down at the bottom. So as Cassie said, you need to have it 2 weeks in if you're going to do an EIV shoot, say. Make sure that you're on top of this maybe a little bit before those 2 weeks, just because it'll take some time to fill this out. Also, as I said, the equipment you may not know 2 weeks beforehand. So it's okay if you don't do every single thing, but do the most important thing. So what camera you're using, if you're using a lighting kit, different things like that. It's say you add, one little thing to your equipment order, you don't need to go update this form and add that in there. Basically just the big things. Yeah, that's basically it. Does anyone have any questions on this form specifically? And this also gives you a little sort of idea of what it's about. Any questions? Okay, cool. We will go back.
Yeah, and just a quick note about the forms before we get past those. Lenny gets a lot of emails every day. just from like sets, just because there's so many production classes. There's obviously NBS, EIV, MChain. So he's getting a lot of stuff all the time. So if you can, try and send everything to him together in one email, or if you have to send something a little bit later, put it in the same chain just so he has everything like there, because like the man does a lot and it makes his life a lot easier. So spreadsheets, these are my favorite things in the world. I know that's like an unpopular opinion. It really depends if you're more a logistic person or a creative person, but there is like crossover between them. So I did not list everything you can use a spreadsheet for, or that you will use a spreadsheet for as a producer, just anybody working on a set, just because there is so much. And I want to like put like a little disclaimer out there. You can use Excel or Google Sheets. They're essentially the same program. I prefer Google Sheets just because I learned that first, and now I have a little bit of an implicit bias towards it, but Excel is essentially the same thing. Um,
And
yeah,
also Google
so
Sheets is easier to share, so it tends to be the preferred platform if you're wanting multiple people to work on it at the same time.
yeah. Okay. So again, this isn't everything. This is just like little snippets, but general organization. So if you make a contact sheet for your cast and crew, I made one, but I didn't want to put it in just because it has people's like phone numbers, Emerson IDs, and just like for sake of privacy. But you can do it like that. Progress sheets. So we have like next to it an editing schedule for a set that the Emerson or the Women in Motion board worked on. So this is, I need to update the links. I'm sorry, that's a me thing. Um, but this is our editing schedule. So like every stage of editing, either for like the picture, audio, composer, we wrote it down, the due date for it, and then I have like a little drop down status thing, which you can easily do for format. So Emily, can you just click like in progress just to show? So I like conditioned it so that in each stage, as you can see, like completed, in progress, received, it's a different color. So that, yeah, that's conditional formatting. You essentially just set the rules, which I don't think we need to go over just because it is like a lot to handle. We are throwing a lot at you. But if you're interested in that and you want like a more in-depth, like how to use a spreadsheet and like do all of this stuff, um, I'd be really glad to like walk through that with you. We can possibly like do another meeting for it sometime in the future in Women in Motion. I don't know. I love spreadsheets though. And then I just have like links and everything. So this is an example of something that you could do with a spreadsheet, just for like general organization things. Um, then action steps. So these are something that I learned about in my intro to producing class. It's essentially stuff to keep you motivated. Like you write down every task that you have to do and then check it off either as you're doing it, when it's completed, if you need help with it. Um, and again, I formatted this so that it changes colors. You don't have to do that. I'm just really, really into colors. Um, but it's just a great way to keep track of your progress for something. So this is the Women in Motion Spring 2021 action steps. And it just gives us like a list to like of things that we know that we need to do, and to keep track of like if anybody needs help with the task, or like what's been completed, what still needs to be done. It's just a great way to keep organized. And then obviously like every time you get something completed, it turns green and it makes you happy because you got something done. So that's another thing that you could do with spreadsheets. And then obviously budgets and breakdowns are the biggest thing. So this is actually a pretty industry standard for a breakdown sheet. And breakdown sheets are a little bit more diverse just because you can make your own. You can use this one. This is one that typically people would write the information in. Um, I still enjoy using it, but this is for a set that I'm producing for EIV this semester. This is floor 13. This is our third episode, so it hasn't gone out yet, and there's been some changes, but it's just you go through the script and then you separate cast, extras, stunts, props, animals and vehicles, sound effects, all that stuff. And this just makes it easier for your crew or your production designer to like go through and be like, okay, yeah, they listed these props, and then they can check it with the script that they have to make sure that it like lines up and everything is all good for that. Yeah, this is something that typically an AD can do, producers can do it, but it is a pre-production like necessity. Um, yeah, so I can send like a blank template of all of these. Actually, Kat, can we send out, if I send you all of the links, can you just send it out in an email to everybody?
I
Cool.
can certainly do that.
Awesome. Yeah. So because these are already like filled out, so I'll just make like blank templates for everybody to send them out. And then budgets. So I have an Emerson budget and an industry budget. So this is the industry budget, and it's very long. And it was made in Excel, and the format's a little wonky, and I'm not a big fan of Excel, but as you can see, it gets very specific. You do not have to fill these out for Emerson, but this is something that my business of film teacher gave to me. And this is essentially an itemized list. So as you can see, there's line numbers for everything, and it breaks it down very specifically. And I'm not going to go into all of this just because we spent an hour and 40 minutes in my class going through it. Um, but all of these line numbers that you see next to like parking, contingency, all of this stuff, those are industry format. So if you're making like a different budget template, the numbers will stay the same just for consistency between like production companies and everything if they use different formats. And then there's like math involved behind it. So this is what you would be filling out for, let's say, like this is specifically like a 20K student film production that's using union rules, so SAG-AFTRA. And then on the email list,
I would say the
we
one
can
thing,
add you to the
oh, sorry. The one thing about Excel is it is a lot easier there to do formulas and use
yeah.
spreadsheets like as spreadsheets were meant to, like to actually use formulas and put that across the entire spreadsheet, which is
Yeah.
obviously what they're doing here. So it's like they're using multiplication and like making sure if this is added to this, what will it equal over here? That sort of situation. And that's why this is really, really long. And a lot of times in the industry, they don't care as much about like fun, nice looking spreadsheets. They just want it to like add up and make sure that it gets the right amount. So that's like one really good reason to use Excel. Obviously, Google Sheets does that, but it's a little bit clunkier, I've noticed. So that's just kind of the difference between them two. And also Google Sheets and Excel, you can use them with each other. So you could
Yeah.
do the whole entire formula and all of the computing on Excel and then put it into Google Spreadsheets to make it look nice. That's totally a great way to work around that as well.
Yeah. And as Emily said when she was going over the industry forms, this is something that you would submit when you are pitching, just to show, like, even though there's a bunch of zeros everywhere, having those zeros in place shows the person that you're pitching to that you have considered every possible thing that could go into the set and whether or not you need funding for it. So even though this is heavily, heavily specific, and you absolutely do not need to go through all of this and fill this out for every set that you work on, it is something good to keep in mind just to like list everything and then show specifically like what you will need, because it shows very like thoroughness that like you have considered everything, like you know the industry standard. And yes, it's not pretty to look at, and that bothers me. I wish they at least put like alternating colors or something. But again, that's a me thing. Industry doesn't really care about that. They just want the numbers, the proof, the line numbers, contingency, all of this. But
Cassie,
in Emerson,
do you want to explain above the line and below the line? Because I feel like that's kind of important.
yeah, so above the line is essentially if you want to like scroll up so that they can see like what is considered above the line. So with budgets and locations and everything, typically a line producer will be in charge of that. So that's someone that you hire during development and they handle all the logistics. So above the line is all of your big, big expenses. So production design, travel for cast and crew, your cast, your director, all of these main expenses go above the line just because they are like the biggest things. And then below the line is everything that the line producer would be like overseeing, which is just complete breakdowns of like props, travel for props, parking permits. Um, and yeah, it's broken up into like, as you can see, like production staff, and then there's like gaffer, first AD, second AD, and then it goes into like prep time, shoot time, wrap time, post production, like all of this stuff. So it's just a good way to like keep track of like who's in charge of what, and then your big like cost divides. Um, so yeah, that's what an industry budget looks like. If you take business of film, you will have to do a little exercise with this, but they don't make you fill out every single line item. They give you a list of things that they want you to consider for the budget, like based off of the script, and then you input those numbers. Yeah. And then if we want to go to the 413 budget, this is the pitch budget that you will have to do for EIV. So this isn't like our like set budget. This is just like breaks down tier one, which is like bare necessities. Like we're like scavenging for like props and stuff to make it as cheap on EIV as possible. Tier two is like the most reasonable, where you like splurge a little bit, but it's like a good comfort level for set. Um, so you don't have to be as specific as we were with this. I just really, really wanted to get as much money as possible. So I broke down prop by prop what went into each episode. Um, that is absolutely unnecessary. They usually just have it as like craft services, this much, like episode one, episode two, episode three. But yeah, this is just an example. Obviously, it's a lot prettier to look at. I did this on Google Sheets, so it's definitely a little bit clunkier with all of the math. Um, but yeah, so there's that. And then tier three is like shooting for the stars. Like there's no budget limitations. EIV does ask that you keep it less than $1,000, but we went a little bit over that. But yeah, that's just like your ideal budget within reason. So it's not like you're hiring like A-list actors for it. Like it's like for a student budget, what is the most amount of money that you would want for it? And Emerson sets, this is something that like nobody really talks about. Emerson sets crafty is the biggest thing that you will have to spend money on. When you get to professional sets, that's not the case at all. And that just has to do with like us having access to equipment that like we don't have to like rent or buy or anything. But yeah, so that's just like a very broad explanation of budgets. Again, this is stuff that like we could spend hours talking about, like all of the different like aspects that go into it, especially the industry budget where it lists like amount, weeks, rates, etc. Like there's just so much that goes into a budget. But I think it's really fun. I don't know. That seems to be an unpopular opinion. So yeah, we just threw a lot of spreadsheets at you, and obviously they all look really different. There's a bunch of like formatting stuff that like we kind of touched on. This is the basic stuff that I think we can go over just to give you an idea of like just general ways to make your spreadsheets look better. And again, it's not a necessity, it's just a matter of preference. Like if you want to have like colors and borders and everything, like that's completely up to you. I personally like it, and just to make it a little bit more creative and less logistic, I figured that like going through and showing you like how to like merge cells and put on borders, and then how to like format it so there's alternating colors automatically so it's easy to read, just like all of that stuff. Emily, do you want to take this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, as Cassie was saying, spreadsheets, like I tend to use Google Sheets a lot more. I also work at Emerson IT where I do all spreadsheets, and we all use Google Sheets just because we're sharing spreadsheets constantly. Um, my mom, who's a bookkeeper, she uses Excel and hates Google Sheets. So we get in this fight all the time, but it's fine. But anyways, in terms of merging cells, I mean, there's like a bunch of different ways. to go about this, but I would say, hang on, I gotta find this. Yeah, merge cells. So you can merge all, merge horizontally. If you're going to select it vertically, it would come up as merge vertically. And then say we're going to merge vertically, this becomes one cell. So you can type in it and it's all going to stay in this one thing. And you don't get the option to click on multiple little things as like you normally would. So it basically just becomes one big cell. This would be like if you want a large title or something like that. I'm just going to unmerge this real quick. So yeah, if you want to unmerge, you just click unmerge. But say if you wanted like a big heading and you want it to take up this space, you would go format and then merge all, because you're merging both horizontally and vertically. So you could write something very big, you could make your text a lot bigger, and then it could fill up this entire space, and you could say title and put this in the center or something like that. Also, if you'd like a border, say you want a border around this, this is where you get to choose where your border is. This makes everything have a border on what you're selected on. So say if I was selected on the whole thing, every single line would then get a border on it. Personally, I don't love this look all the time because it can get a little bit jumbled. It's great if you have like numbers in each thing. So if you have like 1, 2, 3, 4, and you really just want to separate it that way. But once you get into coloring and stuff like that, having borders on everything is not great. You can change the color of your borders, which is kind of fun. Like if you want red borders, I mean, oh wait, why did that not happen? So sorry.
You have to click the type of border again.
Oh, so sorry.
No, this is what we mean. Like there are like slight differences between Google Sheets and Excel that just make it so, yeah.
Yeah, you could have red borders if you really want to be extra. But basically, like if you just wanted to have this area just have the outside of this be bordered, you can just click that and that would just put the outside. Pretty simple. You can play around with that. Then in terms of like coloring, if you want to just regularly fill something, you can like fill it like this. That's like more of if you don't want conditional formatting, which is what we showed you earlier, where it's like if you type something, it would then turn it that color. So if you wanted to do that, basically you would have, there's multiple ways to do this. So this is the way I tend to do it, because a lot of times I'm doing conditional formatting when text says something. So it's like if a text says, you know, yes, I want it to turn green. If it says no, I want it to turn red. So I would apply to this entire range here, and I just know that's going to be I know that that's a rule just because I've used sheets before, but you can always just select it like by choosing this and then hitting that, something like that. Then I tend to go like if text contains yes, then I want it to turn green. So I would highlight that. I would add another rule and I would say it's already applied to the range that I want. I said if text contains no, then I would want it to turn, I would want it to turn red. So we can go yes, and it turns green. We can go no, and it turns red. We can go sure, and it doesn't turn anything because I don't have a conditional format for that. And let's see, what else can we talk about? Anything else, Cassie, you want to go over?
Just showing like alternating colors, because if you have stuff with a lot of lines where there's just like text over text over text, it kind of like, I don't know, for me, I just like, it's hard to like follow into a straight line. So doing alternating colors, if you just Control A.
Yeah, you can Control A. It's also under format and alternating
Yeah.
colors here. Do you want to go explain? Or
Yeah, so you only have one cell
yeah,
applied, which is why I say, so yeah. Yeah, so then let's do the blue one. Why not?
here we are. I'm going to select this range.
Awesome. So then you can see it kind of looks like a little notepad. It has like the dark blue on top, or like you could put like, I don't know if this is like title, and then you could do like scene 2 and then break down anything that you need to. And then
And this would be a good time to maybe merge these cells up here because
yeah,
you just want your title to go all the way across. like you don't want that one big cell. So you could write title here and then, whatever else you want to say, scene 2, and then have everything else written down underneath.
Oh, and a quicker way to merge cells if you don't want to do like the whole thing. Can you just like highlight a couple of cells?
Mm-hmm.
If you go next to where borders is and click that little like parentheses thing.
Ooh, whoa. Okay, well, I just learned something new. That's so
And then
cool.
if you drop down, like you could, yeah.
Wow, look at that. That's awesome.
And you can like Google anything, like if you want to, like, obviously, like we're gonna post this on YouTube, so if you want to like go through and like put us on like half speed and like go through and all this, you can. Also, just like a quick way to learn is just like take time and play around with it, see what different things do. Google it if you want to be like, how do I make like this cell and this cell, like if you have like 3 and 5, how to make this cell equal 8, and that's like um set formatting that we just did with like the yes and the no, except you would have to like make your own row, which is like sum equals and everything. It's very complicated when you're first doing it, but the more that you do it, the easier it gets. So
Yeah.
yeah, just like looking around on Google, watching YouTube videos, or just like playing around by yourself. That's how I learned how to do the like quick little merge cell thing next to the borders. Like it's just, I don't know, spreadsheets are fun to play around with, I think.
Yeah. Also, another fun thing that I know I use a lot is if I want this to never move when I scroll because I want it to be there. Say it has like name, scene, and it's like you always want to know what you're looking at. You can go into freeze, and then you can just freeze that one row. Oops, wait, you can't. Oh, sorry, it's a merge cell. Wait, you can't do it when it's a merge cell. So sorry. Here, we'll go here. You go freeze, and then you can go one. Why is this not? What is happening? Hang on.
Did you merge anything?
I swear I didn't merge that. Maybe I did. Hang on. We'll go down here.
Oh yeah, and like a good like thing that like Emily's just been doing. Like if you click like one of the numbers, it highlights the whole row, one of the letters, it highlights the whole column. And if you want like a whole row to be one color, you just click that and then do the fill and then it gives you a color.
Okay. Wait, I'm inserting one above and let's see. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, it was because this merge cell was in the way, so ignore that.
Oh yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
say if I keep scrolling, one always stays there. So that's really nice if you want to have like certain topics on the top, that'll always be the same underneath. That's a really great way. Yeah, also like selecting numbers gets you across the whole way. You can right click a lot of things. So you can delete this row, insert cells, insert column, insert row, insert link, which is a great way to do something, add a comment. Then also conditional formatting. Data validation is like a whole nother thing.
Data validation is how I did, if you remember the action steps and the like editing schedule, that's how I did the drop down stuff. And again, we're throwing so much at you, but I don't know. Emily and I both are really big fans of spreadsheets. So we just like love playing around with everything.
Yeah,
But
like say you
yeah.
wanted like a text box or checkbox, you could do data validation, and then you can do checkbox and use that, and then it'll bring up your checkboxes. That's like a pretty simple one. And then doing the drop down menu is that same sort of process, a little bit different. You have to like list from a range and
No, you
have
list
like a
items.
list of
Yeah, there you go.
items, and then you'd have like yes, no, sure, save, and then you'd have that option of clicking that. So a lot of fun things you can do with spreadsheets. Me and Cassie, we're nerds. We just play with spreadsheets all the time. But it's something handy to know.
And you will have to use these. Like this isn't just us having fun playing around with it. Like as you can see, like there's so much that you can do as a producer that like if you use Google Docs, whatever, it's fine. But like there's so much more to do with spreadsheets as far as like formatting it and then having it like the different columns and then like the merging cells and then it looks better and it's easier to put information in and all that stuff. But yeah, so that's all of us like talking. How much time do we have? Oh, we've talked a lot. Okay.
We can do
Um,
this as a 5-minute activity. It's really not going to take that much time.
yes. So we're gonna split you guys into breakout rooms. Um, and then you can choose one of two things. So we covered how to fill out an A1, and how to make a spreadsheet and like do little stuff. So in your group, you can also, I'm like reading the chat. I love that you guys are interested in spreadsheets. It makes me very happy. But you can fill out anyone for a hypothetical shoot. So like assume that your group is the cast and crew, the address is a dorm, like just assume that you're filming in a dorm and like be as creative as you want with that. Or you can make a spreadsheet like listing like your group's names, favorite colors, and then like you can play around with like the formatting and like colors and merging cells and borders and everything. So should we do groups of two? I feel like it's easier to do groups of two.
Yeah, we can do groups of 2. That's a good idea.
Cool.
I can make breakout rooms.
Yeah.
We'll have like 2 to 3 participants in a room.
Yeah. And then Emily, I think you and I should probably stay out of it because we are very like, I want them to like figure out how to use these stuff by themselves.
How do you exclude people? Is that possible?
That's a good question. I believe so. I don't know how, but we've definitely done it before.
You have to do it manually, assign manually.
I think.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, then that's fine.
This seems.
Every time I'm like in a class and the teacher is like, hold for 10 minutes while I figure out how to do bigger rooms, I'm like, come on, it can't be that hard. And then we try to do it and it's always that hard.
I don't know if we can do this, Cassie. I think we're just gonna go in and have fun. So
cool. Okay. If you have us in your group, you're lucky.
Yeah. So either get an A1 form, you can find it at Emerson. We're not going to tell you where, you got to go search it yourself, or pull up a spreadsheet and just make a quick little fun spreadsheet. We'll be in here for like 5 minutes and then come out. So yeah, we're going to go to our rooms. Oh, wait. Oh, never mind. Sorry. I figured out a way. Okay, wait. Now I can take us out. Hang on one second.
Great at spreadsheets, not so much Zoom.
Yeah. Wait, I can't even find myself. Am I not here?
As the host,
maybe because you're the host, you can't get put into breakout.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna put, okay. Got it. I think I understand. And how do I put someone who's not in a room? Oh gosh, this is so weird. Ah, there we go.
Send out the rooms to them. Yeah.
No, I got it. Okay, ready and go. I think this will work.
Cool.
Yes, I did it.
Maybe pause the recording now.
Oh yeah, good idea. Okie dokie. I'm gonna put in the chat just a link to the attendance if you didn't get that, and then also a link to a blank Google sheet that has not the one that Cassie had, but a different industry budget template that isn't filled out. If you guys want to check that out. Anyone want to share anything that they discovered, they had fun with, need help with, anything along those lines?
Maybe what they made.
I will share my it's not as impressive as Cassie or Emily's types of spreadsheets. It's very, very small, but it's something. We did drop down menus. We did not get fully through it, but for your favorite color, you would choose. And I didn't get to program the rest of the colors, but you would
that's so exciting though.
And that would change the color. And then we don't have a title, so it's just fun title here. And she was drinking coffee and I had coffee, so we decided to talk about our favorite coffee. And we both like lattes and cappuccinos. So and we both have the same favorite color. So it's not as diversified as it could be, but it's a little bit fun, I guess.
No, but like you got to like play around with the conditional formatting and the drop downs and everything. That's so fun. I love that. Did anybody do the A1 just out of curiosity, or did everybody want to play around with sheets? Erica.
We did, we didn't like fill it out because we weren't gonna like print it, but we went over it and, said our imaginary things that we were putting in there. So
you want to go over it?
That's okay. I think, Cassie, we're almost getting towards the end, so I'm gonna.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to
Take a
share
picture of
the
everybody.
screen. Oh yeah, I gotta do, oh yeah, that. Okay, first, anyone who would like their camera on, I need to take a picture of the organization to put for our ERA nominations. Make yourselves beautiful. And I'm gonna take a screenshot in 3, 2, 1, and smile. Okay, lovely, that was amazing. Okay, I'm just gonna share my screen one more time just for some updates. Let me get that up. We have our writers group tonight that Kat is going to be running 5:30 p.m. via Zoom. She should have sent you the Zoom if you are part of it. If you have not received that, let us know in the chat and she can put you on the mailing list for that. So pumped, excited, can't wait to see you there. Upcoming event, we are going to have another WIM movie night. We're watching Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which is like one of my favorite movies. Anyways, it's happening on Wednesday, so on the 24th from 7 to 8. This QR code actually takes you to a free screening of Portrait of a Lady on Fire if you don't have like Amazon Prime or Hulu or something like that. It's screening free until the 21st if you want to watch it there. But watch the movie from 7, this actually should say 7 to 9, sorry, 7 to 9, and then 9 o'clock, we will meet you at the Zoom and just chat about it and have a fun time. Wear your PJs, bring some tea, some hot cocoa, whatever you'd like. So that should be fun. We'll be promoting that later on our social media. And then an event promotion, we have an awesome docu-series that is going through Women in Motion called Asian American. They're looking for cast and crew calls. Basically, they're asking the question, what does it mean to be an Asian in modern America? And they're looking for all of these positions here. They're trying to make their crew mostly Asian, but they said anyone who is willing or has a lot of passion about this, you can email Kira or DM her down there. I'm so excited for this project. It's going to be a really neat kind of photo shoot that they're going to do. And then they're going to incorporate a lot of interviews, make some sort of web series, as well as like a docu-series, as well as like an entire portfolio of these photographs of people in traditional clothing versus like American clothing. So I'm really excited for this. If you want to take a quick picture of this, please do. Also follow Kira for more information on that. Great. And then last but not least, it is the last day to submit a pitch to us. We have quite a few, which I'm super duper excited for, Asian American being one of them. If you do need a bit more time, contact us. We are willing to give a bit more time, but we've had this, accessible to you guys for about a month. So I think like it's time to wrap it up. But please scan this, give us an email. If someone wants to submit it tomorrow, that's totally fine. But basically we're going to cut it off by midnight tonight. And the writers group would be a great opportunity to just like solidify any last few details or ideas you may have. So make sure that you keep that on your radar if you were planning on pitching to us. But that is it for our meeting. Sorry, we went 1 minute over. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to stick behind. Otherwise, enjoy your weekend. Stay warm. It's snowing a lot out there, but it was great to see you all. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.